Alright, we're almost there. I'm just finishing up some of the final preparations before the first attempt at the Maiden Voyage. So, since last time I got a 1-inch hose there for the inlet to the pump, redid the outlet of the reservoir here to take a 1-inch fitting instead of the 1/2 inch that it was. Inside here, I got the strainer. You can see that comes in at 90 and the strainer's up here. That'll prevent anything from getting in the system I don't want. Another thing I did was on the splice here, where I spliced the tracks, I got a piece of old seat belt and I epoxied it on here. So I know it probably wasn't the best idea to epoxy it, but I didn't put any epoxy in the middle here where the splice actually is, just on both sides. So I think that'll make it a lot stronger, and if it doesn't work, then I'll figure something out. But anyways, I'm gonna finish up some of the final things to do here and get back to you.
All right, here we go. Maiden voyage of the tank. Had some problems with the starter not working, so Vince rigged up a pull start.
I'm gonna use this starter.
Just spray the outside.
What?
You don't have to take it off.
Oh, okay.
Give it a little blast of starter fluid on the outside of the air cleaner and give it a little boost. Oh boy. This is just unbelievable. Don't make sharp turns. Well, this has been a long project for Vince. Hold on. What's that? Alright, so Vince has been building this tank prototype for, I don't know, he's probably been working on it for about a year. Less than a year. He's done the whole thing himself. Asks a few questions from me and a good friend of mine, Larry and Emil. But in general, he built this entire thing himself.
Well, there we go. The maiden voyage of the tank. It drove surprisingly well, actually. I didn't have any problems with the tracks coming off or anything, or even these guide teeth breaking off while I was turning. But man, did that feel good. After, what, 7 months of building this? About 7 months? to finally be able to drive it was just amazing. So earlier when I showed you this, it was earlier this morning, and I had just put the hydraulic fluid in, tightened up the fittings. Now it's about, I'd say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So all morning was pretty much spent troubleshooting the engine mainly, because originally I had the electric starter on there, but it ran for about 10 seconds and decided that it had had enough and just stopped working. We hooked it up to a separate battery with jumper cables, and the starter it just did not work anymore. So I had to put my little pulley back on there, wrap a rope around there to make it a pull start. And what else? Yeah, and then I was having troubles with the carburetor, or what I thought was the carburetor. Cleaned that out a bunch of times, and it ended up being this tube right here that was the problem, because this is a vacuum tube, because it like pulls the gas up into where it has to be, but this had been dry rotted and had a bunch of holes in it. So I cleaned that real well with just soap and water, and then hooked it up with electrical tape. So after I did that, it ran just fine. But man, was that a lot of fun being able to ride this. But anyways, now as you can see, I'm still at the top of the hill instead of down there where I should be. The problem is that it's full of bubbles. You can see it has that like milky color. That's like millions, probably billions of little tiny bubbles, which is just absolutely horrible for a pump. So I'm gonna have to figure out something to do, how to prevent that in the future. But I don't care about that right now. All I care is that this thing runs. It runs. That's about it. I mean, words can't describe this right now. So, well, I was glad I was able to film the Maiden Voyage so you could experience that with me. Makes for a great video. But anyways, yeah, that's the tank. The tank. I can call it a tank now because it actually runs. And like I said, the tracks held up very well when I was turning. Another thing that I didn't think of before today, even though it's pretty obvious, is that you have to drive both tracks at the same time. You can't like lock one and just drive with the other and pull it around when you're turning, because when the fluid comes up to that T right there, right by the welding glove, when it comes in, if you have one of these forward and another stationary, the fluid will just take the path of least resistance and go through the empty valve into the reservoir. So you have to have both forward to go forward, both backwards to go backwards, or one forward and one back to turn. So, but I didn't have any problems with that. It worked very well, actually. And it doesn't have a lot of speed, but it definitely has a lot of torque. Because when I was coming up this hill originally, I was going at pretty much the same speed as when I was going on flat ground. So, it'll be interesting to see how steep of a hill this thing can actually climb, which I will definitely find out eventually. But today was all about just taking it for an easy ride through the yard. And I went up here, over there, turned around, went back around here, all the way up to the driveway, around the house, back out there, and then back to right here. So there, that's the tank. Next thing, what would be next? Oh yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention is that the kill switch I hooked up here, whoops. The kill switch here, to ground out the engine, to turn it off, doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong with it. I must have it hooked up at the wrong place. So that's something, that is the first thing I'll do before fixing the bubble problem. And yeah, the exhaust worked really well. These little flaps here looked really cool as it was running. And yeah. So pretty soon I'll start putting a body on this to make it look like an actual tank. And I know in most of my other videos I said this was going to be an ISU-152 Soviet tank destroyer from World War II, but I think I'm going to change it to a KV-2, which is another Soviet heavy tank from World War II, and it will have an actual big turret on it instead of the ISU, which just has a mounted gun on the front and a big cabin. This will have an actual turret, and it's a pretty big boxy turret too, so I'll have a good amount of room inside. But that's in the relative near future. And so yeah. Man, I just can't get over this, that it was actually running. Alright, yeah, so I'll get these problems sorted out and then see you next time. Thank you for watching.